Hello, welcome to 15-Minute Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and I'm joined by David Fields. Hello, David.
Hello, Maria Isabel. Happy snowy Monday. Snowy up here, not snowy down there.
Exactly, not snowy down here. Happy Monday. Welcome to the space where we answer your questions about how to create success, traction, and really how to grow your consulting firms, how to improve your lives and the lives of your clients through you, through your work. Wherever you are, we hope that you're safe and at exactly the temperature you want to be. So it takes us a minute to see your questions. Those of you who are familiar, you know we love it when you participate and when you chime into the discussion. It makes it richer. And we also love it when you bring up questions that are really relevant for you right now. So post your comments. It takes us a minute. So start typing whatever brought you here today. What question do you want to answer on this Monday? And in the meantime, Jaren, can you please put up the questions that came in during the week? And hello, Dan. Hello, Michael. Happy Monday. All right, David, I'm going to ask you this question from Robin. Okay. Robin says, I recently won a project. The sponsor, who is busy, assigned a junior person to be the point person on their side. The outcomes I was hired to produce will require sponsorship at the top of the house. All right. My question is, are there best practice tactics and strategies around demanding proper sponsorship and attention within a client organization? Well, yes, you came to the right place with your question, Robin. David, what are the best tactics and best practices?
So this happens all the time. It is a good question. Honestly, I think every consulting firm faces it. We face it also, right? With larger clients. As far as we can tell, and what seems to work is just build into your project plan at least a monthly sponsor meeting, right? And that you do insist on, you can insist on, and it's perfectly fair to say, absolutely, we'll let whoever it is, the junior person, be the lead. That'll be the person, our point person, who we meet with first. And I want to talk with you minimum once a month, 15 minutes. And the schedule, the agenda for that call is pretty straightforward. It's you give me an update on anything you've heard, any feedback you have, and anything you need from me. I'm going to give you an update and tell you anything I need from you. I had one of these calls this morning with a client that's in the UK. And I said, I need you to lean on these people to ensure they are showing up. And he said, got it. Here's a little bit of background and information that will help you and your team work with these people. And that's perfect. It allows the project to move smoothly. I don't think it's more complicated than that. But Maria Isabel, am I missing something?
I don't think you are. This works extremely well because it also keeps you in the day-to-day of what's top of mind of the sponsor beyond your project. So it serves multiple purposes, not only making sure you are having conversations with your sponsor about the particular project, but it serves a multitude of purposes in your relationship throughout the life of your project that are beyond the particular scope or the particular kind of updates of the moment. So general, this is a phenomenal best practice to have and to put in place always.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to read this question from Dan because we got lots of questions coming in. Perfect. And then whatever it is, I haven't completely read it, but you get to answer it.
All right, let's go.
Because I answered that. All right. So Dan says, can you talk about how to be successful mentally and during execution, during outreach, in making the transition from a social conversation to a market conversation? Mentally equals this relationship is ready for a market conversation and getting over thinking they'll resist. And from an execution, how to be effective at uncovering relevant challenges we can help with and avoiding missing opportunities. This is a softball for you, Maria Isabel.
Yes, it is. All right. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for asking the question, Dan. Okay. This is where you need to be right side up, right? The conversation is about them, right? And we're asking, look, what at the beginning of your conversation, there's two techniques here. And depending on how the conversation goes, you activate the second one. The first one, you always activate it, right? At some point, you ask what we call the right side up inquiry, which is what would make this conversation valuable, useful, helpful for you. That deals with your mindset because you are always responding to their question. So if they said something that is related to their business that will make the conversation valuable, helpful, and useful for them, then you will know that there's no resistance, right? You are addressing it. You are being about them. If they didn't include it, you would say, I was hoping we could also make some time to talk about X. Will that be okay with you? And you can ask for permission and gauge their willingness to talk about that. And the X is not, I want to sell you a project, so I want to talk about that, right? The X is, I want to get your opinion on the market, or I want to probe your thinking on this topic. Those are the types of things you can insert in the, I was hoping we could get to talk about this, right? Things that are also about them in some way, where you can engage them in a conversation that could be interesting for them, right? That helps with your mindset. That could also help with your second question in execution, in uncovering relevant challenges. So that's where I would start. That's your first technique. Every single conversation, deploy that technique. And that's a technique you can deploy actually in every conversation you have with a prospect, with a client, with everybody. And the second technique, if an opportunity arises, is to deploy the turn. But David, before I keep talking today, where would you be with this question?
Well, I mean, where you are, similarly, that there are a couple points that you should be ready to use the turn. The turn is built for this question.
Right.
It is literally was built to help with this transition, with a very important caveat, which is you use the turn when your prospect has brought up a challenge that you believe you can work on. If they've not brought something up, then you can't use the turn. And this is a mistake we see folks try often. No one has brought up anything. And they're like, well, look, can we have a separate conversation to discuss such and so? That you've launched into selling mode.
Right.
Now, that said, with A-level relationships, very, very strong relationships, and with C relationships, very weak relationships, you can do something called the overture. And don't want to go deep into these techniques here today, but that is a version of the turn, which you don't need to wait for someone to come up with a challenge. One important piece of understanding of how to use the overture is you don't use it with B relationships,
right? Because
you will burn the relationship. So mentally make sure you're using it at the right time. And if you're using it at the right time, I think you'll find a little bit less internal resistance. That was my thinking on that, Isabel.
Wonderful. And I think it's somewhat tied to the question that Pearl is asking, which is the next question that shows up on the list. So I'm going to ask that question to you, David. Pearl asks for warm introductions to interesting people. So thank you, Pearl, for surfacing the technique.
Nice.
How do you approach those relationships to get to a problem they're having? Is the hope that the person who introduced you will think of someone who is in your market, in your target market, or person of interest? What do you think, David?
Yes, I think these are related. So I want to call out a mindset that seems to be underlying both of these questions. And you can let us know, Pearl and Dan and others, whether there's a bit of an aha or not, which is you're going into conversations. Both of these questions indicate you're going into conversations trying to sell. You're going into conversations with a sales mindset. I hope that I'll give you a problem because I want to sell something. And what we would recommend is do not go into conversations with a sales mindset, because consulting is not sold. Consulting is bought. If someone has a challenge and they feel like they need help and they urgently want help, they will buy consulting from you. And you need to be aware of when those conditions exist. But you can't sell consulting to someone who doesn't need it. So make sure you're focused on the person, your right side up, and you're aware and intent on them, as opposed to where's my opening to sell. Okay. So that said, how do you approach these relationships to get to a problem? You don't approach them to get to a problem. You approach them to build a relationship and understand them. And you do give them an opportunity to raise their problems by being interested, by listening well, by reflecting and having them share more. And as they share more, they may share a challenge that fits with what you do. And if they don't, that's fine. That's great. You've still built a relationship and you're creating wealth that way. So it may not be the answer you're looking for, Pearl. And similarly, Dan, it may not fit. But this is how we've seen to be most effective in consulting. Have I gone too far astray, Maria Isabel? If so, bring me back or I'm in the right.
I think that's absolutely right. And you will be surprised how many times even a connection that is seemingly not or shouldn't be in the network core has facilitated an introduction to a third person who actually is in the network core. So if you make your conversations about relationships, and when you are asking to be introduced to somebody who's interesting because you like meeting people, you remain genuinely in that space. People will perceive it that way, and they will reward that with generosity in turn, right? They will introduce you as somebody who likes to meet people, and they will open their minds further and their Rolodexes even further, if that thing exists, right? Or their AI contact list even further, to show you people who are actually interesting. And a person who is not in your network core or shouldn't be in your network core that you had one conversation with may get you to somebody else who actually belongs in your network core. So have that initial conversation with an open mind about relationship building, exactly like you said, David, because you never know, right? Who's in that person's network? Maybe more folks like the people who, like the person who introduced you. So absolutely. All right. Tom had a question, and then Robin had a comment on the question we answer.
Okay. So what was Tom's question? I am posting long form articles on LinkedIn. I'm getting impressions, but very few profile views. How can I leverage LinkedIn more effectively? Oh, you wouldn't want to know my answer to that. Go ahead, Maria Isabel. We'll let you start.
It's very difficult to leverage LinkedIn as a posting platform where you get traction on your articles. Basically, that's what not only our experience, but the experience of all of our network tells us. What LinkedIn is wonderful for is the ability to have more touch points with connections that you already have, and to be in front of the eyes of people that you already know, and through them get to know other people. So leverage your opportunity to do one-on-ones, continue posting. You never know who sees it and through them in whose feeds your posting ends up, even though people are not clicking into your profile. And then the workings of the algorithm will eventually do their thing, right? At some point, you have to compare the writing marketing must, which is what you're doing on LinkedIn, with the time, effort, and reward of other marketing musts. And we encourage you to always put outreach, direct, one-on-one outreach at the top of your list, and then decide on what comes second. And it may be that writing is your strong form, and it's a long, long, long game. David, where are you at?
Yeah, well, I think for most consultants that are doing a lot of LinkedIn, the way to make LinkedIn more effective is to shut it down. Stop doing LinkedIn and spend all of that effort actually having conversations with prospects. Since you're not going to do that, what I will say is remember what LinkedIn is best for from consulting standpoint is creating a conversation, is getting you to the point where you can get people off of LinkedIn. And that's going to happen more often through an individual one-on-one effort than your posts. Posts are fine. They will get you some views. We can trace across our entire client base, probably less than $500,000 total of everything of actual project work to LinkedIn, which is tiny, tiny, tiny little sliver of revenue. So I would not be approaching LinkedIn thinking it's a great marketing vehicle. Okay, Robin, you had a follow-up question. There was another question from someone on when to use the turn, and we're going to have to get to that next week. So I promise we will revisit those next week, but we've hit our time already. Thank you for asking questions and spending 15 minutes with us. And it's just amazing. 3 really quick things. One reminder, if your practice is over $1 million, join the Consulting Firm Index, and Jaron has put the link down there, cfi.davidafields.com. It's open for participation. We have a few dozen firms signed up already, and you should join them if your firm is of size. It's a really good thing. Second is make sure you come visit us every Monday. Most of you do, but if you don't already, put Monday Live on your calendar, and that way you get to us. And the last thing is subscribe, right? Yeah. Check out the articles. This week's article is going to be around something we've talked about recently, which is pies. So make sure you're subscribed so you get them. And with that, thank you for joining us. I hope you have a fabulous week. I hope you remember this is a rate side up business. It's about them. It's about your clients. It's about your prospects. So give those people value and give them kindness. And we will see you next week. Take care, all.